Well, now what? Reconstruction. America's equivalent of that time your little brother broke your Lego set and you tried desperately to put it back together while explaining to him that racism is bad only to have him break it again as soon as you left. I know. Sometimes I'm so relatable, it's scary. Talks about Reconstruction arguably began as soon as the Civil War started in 1861. I mean, after all, it's not like it was gonna last a long time or anything. However, when the Union finally found themselves victorious 4 years later, not much had been put in place. A new sense of loyalty still had to be instilled in Southerners, the economy had to be rebuilt, and the freed slaves all had to be given opportunities. Spoiler warning, none of these things actually happened. Lincoln's goal was to readmit former Confederate states as soon as possible. Once 10% of the white voters in each state took an oath of allegiance, the state could then rejoin the Union as long as it agreed that the 13th Amendment was a good idea and that Avengers Endgame was low-key only so-so. However, in a big plot twist, it turns out that politicians never agree, and Congress decided that the 10% plan was dumb. They wanted 50%. Now, Lincoln and Congress argued back and forth for a while, but it turns out it didn't matter because Lincoln got shot by an angry actor with a bad mustache. And not to scare you, but Jar Jar Binks and John Wilkes Booth have never been seen together in the same room, so coincidence? You tell me. Andrew Johnson, Lincoln's vice president and a Southerner himself, took over in 1865 and continued Lincoln's policy of trying to get the squad back together. He admitted a ton of states back into the Union, even if they hadn't really given the vote to African Americans. He then forgave most of the ex-Confederate leaders and allowed them to run for office again. Needless to say, this was pretty unpopular with the hardcore Republican types in Congress, and Johnson got impeached, black men were enfranchised with the 14th Amendment, and the new Southern governments were ignored and placed under military occupation. With the military now in place all over the South, new Republican governments were put into power, which were generally supported by black voters who now comprised a majority in some states. This made some of the white Southerners mad, so terrorism was a thing and people fought each other for a while. When Ulysses S. Grant became president in 1869, the Republican governments in the South were becoming increasingly corrupt and unstable, and Grant was ready to pull federal forces out. This happened slowly over his 2 terms and was always quickly followed by Democrats taking over again and restricting the freedom of African Americans. This is obviously a gross oversimplification of pretty much everything, but hey, what are you gonna do? Put me under military occupation?